Illegal dumping worse.
Price Road and Clyde Street. Bob Cruz replaced the bridge there.
Here at the KC Real Deal Convention,
by criminal standards, Stanley was no cowboy.
An after-school ride turned into real trouble.
It's definitely a real bad accident.
Someone who will be qualified.
When I am president, the buck will stop in the Oval Office.
A 10-year-old girl says that she was raped at school by another student, and she says her teacher didn't call police.
Well, they're not telling you what to think, but they're telling you what to think about. And that's what agenda setting is all about.
We do have video of a car leaving the prison.
The 1% special assessment of the property is part of the Community Improvement District.
Cody G, off to Atlanta.
Anyone else? What do we like?
Well, the girl got disemboweled. Yes. Because the cover was removed and she sat on the actual suction.
Well, the way it was explained to me is a lot of first-time home buyers need access to the money ahead of time in order to put money down.
That's kind of news you can use, and maybe we'd report it before everybody else.
Shreda's on the school rape, it looks like. That's a big deal.
An elementary school student in the Kansas City, Missouri School District told her teacher that somebody raped her, and the teacher said, "Stop tattling."
When we talk about agenda setting, it's not someone, whether it's radio or TV, saying, here's the topic, here's what you should believe, or what you should think. It's, here's the topic. Think about what you want. And that's what agenda setting means. We're setting the agenda, laying out the topics.
There's still talk about George Brett's tirade, profanity-laced tirade.
What about the car into the house? We got anything on that already?
And I know, just having a teenage daughter, that's everybody wants the Hello Kitty debit card. Or
I read a report that said if this passes and it's more consumer friendly and helps people who are troubled debtors to begin with, that banks are going to go after the people who pay their bills on time.
And we're waiting on the school rape. We're just going to have Sharita perhaps do that? Yeah. Okay. Should we hold nominations and decide unless someone else wants to throw something else out?
I don't know, I kind of like that one.
So stimulus home tax credit gets a star. What else do we like, folks?
I think it was David Brinkley who said, the news is what I say it is. And it's very subjective. We look at those stories and we decide what looks most important to us. And what's most important to you is not going to be what's most important to me. And so we recognize that if it's a story of narrow significance, it better be very significant. Otherwise, we're looking for something broad, or what we call big tent, that affects a lot of people.
Yeah, it all starts in the morning meeting and what we decide in there, and we kind of go from that.
And that can all change.
It can all change. It can all change in a second. It can all change, you know, in the booth at 5:15 we have breaking news, and it all changes, and everything that we worked on all day goes, you know, for something else. This is our 5 o'clock rundown, and it all starts looking like this. I come in every day, and this is what it looks like. Good share of it's blank lines. Obviously, there's some things in there. We're going to have weather at 5:15 every day. We're going to have traffic in. D-block is our health stuff. So throughout the day, we go from that to this one. And this is probably about half stacked. Obviously, I don't have all the anchor reads in and shots and stuff like that in part of it, but that's what it looks like as we're building it. So each story has what we call a slug line, basically a title.
Hey Troy, it's John Pepitone. Good, they love that story. I pitched it today, and we thought it was news people can use because the idea of being able to get that credit in advance to use as a down payment or with closing costs.
To understand what it means, to think about how you would put together newscasts, keeping in mind that just the act of putting together a newscast is agenda setting. You can't run all the stories of the day. because on any particular day there could be tens, hundreds, thousands of stories. Well, you don't have time for that. You have maybe 35 minutes.
Got switched because Sharita needs help on this. She's got to have something here in the next 20 minutes.
Very rarely that we have the 4 stories that we choose in the morning meeting are the 4 stories that end up reporter packages at 5 and 6.
She's going to come here, meet us here. We're shooting some video for her here. She's getting an interview that she needs, and then I'll take it all and package it up for 5.
Yeah, they can set up their story, be halfway through, shot 3 interviews, and we have some story that came in better. We call them and say, yeah, you have to completely change track, and we'll help look up phone numbers, but it's pretty much up to them to take it from there.
This is apparently a student, a girl who was raped at this school, reported it to the school. The school didn't do anything about it, sent her home.
Well, I think anytime a story like that comes out of our schools, whatever the school district, there's a wide interest because, you know, we all have kids, or many of us have kids, many of our viewers do, and something like that is shocking. Whether or not it's true, we don't know, but certainly it's part of the story that it'll be investigated.
Yeah, if my child goes to school there, I'm going to want to know who the hell that teacher is. Yeah, I'm with you.
You're thinking, well, what's interesting to the community, but you're also thinking, in a not so obvious way, what's interesting to me? And then you go do the story, and by implication, what you were saying is, and now it's interesting to you.
John's pretty good at getting interviews, and if he's talked this long, he's not going to get an interview.
This is part of the hard part of the job, huh?
Yeah, the thing is, you know, you really need is like a parent who has kids here.
But the 3 main factors in terms of story topics that the AP says transcend all others are stories that impact health, heart, and pocketbook. And if you have a story that impacts any of those 3 areas, then that's a story that in this AP study they determined would attract an audience.
And kind of ask her where they stand, and you know, they're going back, I guess.
Hey Sharita, it's John Pepitone. We got some exteriors of the school for you, but I just heard you're not coming out here, is that right? You want us to come back to the station? We'll see you in a little bit. Bye.
He told me that both kids are still allowed to go to class. However, that mom says, the mom says, I don't know when I'm going to let them go back to school. They're both special ed kids.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Every person that works on those individual newscasts is different. You're going to have perhaps a different producer for each local newscast, and they each come into that newscast with their own news judgment, their own view of what's important in the world, and it might differ than the producer from the 6 o'clock show or the producer from the 5 o'clock show.
Lead story is an update on Michael Vick getting out of prison earlier today.
Trying to see if I can get some help from you all. The Michael Vick story?
Fortunately, don't have any good video because they left in the middle of the nighttime, and you have all that going on, and they, of course, didn't want anyone to see them anyway, so he slipped out, but we were able to take some stuff and rework it with a little bit of national news as well to kind of mix it in. So we'll have Kathy fronting that as our lead.
He was serving 19 months for a dogfighting conviction. Kathy Quinn explains what's ahead for Vick. She's here live in our studio.
Well, Michael Vick is going to serve.
If it was in Texas, we wouldn't care, but we've covered him since he came here. You don't hear of too many high-profile inmates in Leavenworth, even though it's a high-security place. But it's a talker. It's what people want to know about, so.
Every producer is going to do it a little bit differently. Decide which stories they're going to put, story placement, which story they're going to put where. And the key is to get the stories that are the most important stories of the day, get them high enough in the newscast, but also have stories that people are going to be interested later in the newscast.
Kansas City, Missouri police are interviewing grade school children after learning about a possible rape. Fox 4's Sharita Hutton's up in our newsroom with the interview that you will only see on Fox 4.
Mark, definitely a shocking story, not only because of the age of these kids, but where this attack allegedly happened. Now,
I think there's news we have to tell. And whether that is a big crime story or a murder, I mean, we feel like there are some crimes meet that level that we have to report.
How do you satisfy everyone?
You don't. And that's why you have 30 minutes.
The controversy over the future of the U.S. Detainee Center at Guantanamo.
We don't do just one story and try to satisfy everyone. Hopefully, in the course of 30 minutes or 60 minutes, you have enough stories that everybody watching has been affected by something in there. So they feel rewarded for having watched. And that's, our challenge, making sure that we have enough breadth and width of news that people watching feel like they came away knowing what happened that day, and even if nothing in that newscast impacted them, they at least feel like they understand the community better and are more knowledgeable for having watched.
Yeah, I think that's the purpose of journalism in general, whether it's print, internet, broadcast, is to sort of be that voice, those eyes, those ears.
A peaceful picketing turns violent.
Whether it's government, whether it's daily, just the things happening in our lives. We can't all be everywhere at the same time, so hopefully we're doing the best job we can to be there for our viewers.
And I think that's a VOSA. I don't think that's a package. Not unless you get the cop who was hit to talk. I understand that, and we're going to put it on the air, but I don't think we need to package it.
There are a lot of different reasons for choosing a lead story. Something that will capture the viewer's attention, something that is relevant to a wide cross-section of your viewers. I usually pick one right away, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the lead that night. And I like to have something in place to start building a show.
Okay, all right.
Start from the top, then build from that point down.
A block is where the most people are going to watch. They're going to watch probably the longest amount of time, and that's where your most important stuff's going to go.
So just the mere act of putting in order a series of topics, of stories, you are setting an agenda. That doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. What you need to look at is what is important for that particular day. What's the big story?
George, you think this is worth packaging?
And if you think of an agenda as a number of items on a list, maybe there's only one item on their list, or maybe there are several. One view of agenda setting is if there are several, they're giving you an order.
And out of the 4 or 5 stories that we have that we choose from, I go through and try to either figure out which one is the most people are going to like the most, or people are going to have the most interest in, or the most relevant story of the day.
So they're implying, in a way, this is what we think is most important, if it's item 1 that we talk about, and then item 2 and item 3. But still, there's only 2 or 3 items, not all of the items of the day. And that gets back to that agenda setting.
You're watching KETV Channel 7 Omaha. More complete coverage.
It's a closer race than in 2001.
Jim Suttle's campaign is gathered tonight at the Omaha Firefighters Union Hall.
Or you should try as a journalist to be as objective as you possibly can.
What is it that would impact maybe the most people?
The I-80-680 interchange is reopened after being closed for several hours this afternoon.
News is what's happening now. It's not what happened 24 hours ago.
What is a story that the most people really need to know about?
Now, with the election over, it's time to get ready for the task at hand.
You're going out there and you're looking for this nice balance of stories that will interest people and inform and entertain.
And those are the stories that you need to include in your newscast.
Once again, this is just a rehash of the 5 that these guys were busted in an elaborate growing scheme.
But it'd be a good visual. And they were going to put some of that video on the feed, which is sort of interesting.
Good story, talked with the COO of the whole shebang.
It wasn't intentional. She wasn't drunk. It was just she ran a red light, wasn't paying attention, talking to friends, and...
They don't think she's going to make it.
So you get this big pot of stories that come in from all sources. And then you start making determinations. Obviously, you can't cover it all. And you look at it, is it interesting? Is it important? Does it have long-term ramifications? Does it tie back to something else that's going on in the news today? There are just a number of things that really you can apply on a very
concrete basis. You can have a list if you wanted to, but generally speaking, I think most reporters, most assignment editors in their head just go through that mental checklist.
80 is closed at 680 is closed southbound east.
We'll have to stay tuned on this interstate thing, see if this
there's no fall off.
On any given day, we may all agree on what the big story is because it's so obvious. But on another day, we might all disagree. The point is that we all bring some things to the table, and it affects how we cover a story or even who you choose to get an interview with. And that, in and of itself, can be the thing that really takes a story in one direction or another.
So not leaving the money in the drawer, is that a new something since the break-ins?
680 Bend is still closed for another 15 minutes.
We still, do the accidents and the fires and the crimes, that's kind of the bread and butter. I mean, it's local news, and so it's got to be done. But it's nice to be able to do stories that you can develop a little bit more too.
I think a lot of that comes back to the philosophy of the station itself. Maybe they have a philosophy that begins with the station manager or the news director and works its way down, or the consultant might be involved in that decision making. Often it's not verbalized. Yeah, sometimes it is, but often it's not. It's just a feeling that those within the news department have of this is the kind of station we are.
Yeah, last night was the election for city council seats in Omaha mayor.
I know that the day after that city election, we will see coverage of the results from overnight.
Lead story today is the Jim Suttle, his transition into office as Omaha mayor over the next 26 days.
But this afternoon's angle, and maybe even by 10 o'clock still the angle will be, what happens next?
You're watching KTV Channel 7 Omaha. More complete coverage.
Omaha's new mayor says he is up to the challenge after winning by less than 1,500 votes.
Despite the lack of sleep, he said now, with the election over, it's time to get ready for the task at hand. So today,
we have the results, we have a new mayor, and he is in a position to set the agenda by use of his position and what he has to say. So that's what he does. And that's really what all elected officials in some capacity do with their position. They use their position to set an agenda. The media follow, record, go to, whether it's videotaping or taking notes, and report on what occurred, what they had to say. But more often than not, short of some spectacular story that we don't know about yet, it will then play a prominent role in the newscast.
We still have to continue as a great city. We still have to set the framework for the future.
Now, Suttle says his first order of business is getting Omaha's financial house in order. He says once the economy...
And that's done for a reason. It's done on purpose. We all know that it's being done. As media representatives, we know that while we might not call it agenda setting, we know that to a certain extent we're being used by the elected official in whatever position they're in by just the virtue of them calling a news conference. We may not even want to go. And I've had this discussion with reporters, but we feel obligated to go because we know that if we don't, we might be the only television station not there, and our competitors are there. And what if he or she says something and we weren't there to capture it?
I've heard of keys to the city. This is the keys
to the office.
So that'll be the big story at 6, just detailing that. Right now, Adrian said he's waiting.
The choice of what is covered can represent a bias. So you do have to take a step back and look at how you're covering a story, and if you're selecting a good balance of coverage, particularly when there are many sides to an issue where you're dealing with politics. So you have to be careful.
Tonight on Fox 4 News at 5, shocking allegations as an 11-year-old girl says she was raped at Metro Elementary School.
That is the 5 p.m. topic, one of them.
Those pre-show teases and the promos during the evening can be equated more to a headline you would see in a newspaper than to the actual story itself.
The main goal of the topical is to
drive our audience from the lead-in shows into our newscast to retain the most people that we can get from those shows, and the casual viewer who's walking by their TV and just sees something compelling. Hopefully we can get those people to come back at 5 and watch our show.
You'll notice that these promos, yeah, they run during prime time, and so if you're watching that particular station, you'll get hooked to them, but not everyone watches your station. And so you'll have these, especially in sweeps months, the promotions start early, just hoping to catch you the one time you're watching us and to plant the seed that you'll come back and watch our newscast next week when we start the series.
Police on the offensive, staking out bombs.
You write them in such a way to attract an audience, and it's interesting the choice of words when you write those promos or how it's perceived by the viewer. Essentially, you're telling the viewer, you've got to see this.
Plus, gas prices on the move.
Not a commanding voice, you've got to see it, but you're not going to believe it. We've got this video, you've got to see it. Almost as if, going back to the analogy, two friends on the sidewalk saying, did you hear about this? That's the kind of tone, that's the kind of delivery, the kind of writing that you want in those promos. And what you are saying to them, and often specifically, is, you want more about this story? Watch us at 10 o'clock.
See how they're training to patrol the streets. That's tonight on Fox 4 News at 10.
And it airs 2 to 3 times. Each spot will air 2 to 3 times.
You might be writing a promo and the story hasn't even been written yet. You have to go to the reporter and say, okay, so now you're doing this story about this factory closing. What can you tell me about the story? And you're actually interviewing the reporter about the story that they have yet to write. And you're hopeful that the story ends up the way that they're describing it.
Cops are telling me now that there is a difference between special needs and special ed, and we should say and I'll change it, that they're in a special needs class. They also told me a couple of other new things. They said they were over there this afternoon, and the room where this allegedly happened, you can't lock the door, and the girl had claimed in her statement that the door had been locked. So he says we're finding some inconsistencies in the preliminary investigation.
You take the S off of news, and that describes it. It's what's new.
She's got a credibility issue, but she's a special needs, she's a special needs student. So that's why I think it's important to say she's a special needs student, because there could be an issue with, how she communicates, what she understands, that sort of thing. Story's written and it's being edited right next to me. Assault happened, but police say we're about done. We're just getting ready, just finishing up the loose ends. We're gonna head out to do a live shot.
So I was a news producer prior to getting into teaching.
Did you ever think of yourself as someone who was setting the agenda for your viewing audience or anything?
I would say no. I didn't put it in those terms. The way I would explain it to others and to myself was, what is the most important story of the day? What is it that people would be talking about if they just heard about it? That's your lead.
From the station that's working for you, you're watching Fox 4 News at 5.
Welcome on this Wednesday. I'm John Holtz.
And I'm Susan Heidland. A 10-year-old girl says that she was raped at school by another student. Fox 4's John Pepitone live at Children's Mercy Hospital. John?
That's right, Susan. The girl's guardian tells Fox 4 News that both the victim and the boy accused are both special needs students.
Don't get caught up in the visual.
The teacher returned to the room. The girl says she told him what happened, but the teacher took no action.
Well, they're not telling you what to think, but they're telling you what to think about. And that's what agenda setting is all about. So listen for the content. Listen for the news. Pay attention to the news, not how it's gift wrapped for you.
Police say graffiti is a sign of crime.
That's why Operation Brightside works to get rid of graffiti the second it goes up.
Well, television news is what's going on in the community, what people are interested in.
A candidate for change, one who spent a lot of one-on-one time with constituents in Kansas City.
We aren't told how to cover the news. We're not talk radio, we're not commentators, we're just reporting. Here's what we've learned today. Here, hopefully, are both sides. And now it's up to you to make a decision.
Sticking up a good 3 inches, just waiting to mangle someone's time.
We aren't here to tell people what to think. We're here to tell people what's going on, what the facts are, in the best way we possibly can.
He is 6 feet from pickups, cars, and semis, doing 70+ miles per hour.
You can't measure it. You can't put numbers to it. No, it's just your gut.
It's all about art and creativity. That's the American way.
But this shortcut took a dangerous turn when authorities say the 15-year-old driver lost control of his Jeep.
People are always predicting that we're on our last leg. And the fact of the matter is we're far from it, and we may be changing, and we may have a business down the road that none of us recognize today. But I think what we're going to see is that we'll have more news rather than less when it all shakes out.
It's not when the gate's fully down that you have to stop. It's as soon as the lights are activated.
Television is just a mechanism of getting that information to the public. So it's no different than any other kind of news. It's the way you do it, it's the way you deliver it.